Michele Bachmann went on a Christian fundamentalist radio show, and she lost her marbles.
I'm going back to Iran for just a moment here because you and I were talking a little bit about, Iran is very apocalyptic oriented. They're looking for a Messiah. They're very end time focused, the Mahdi. And yet our churches are absolutely bankrupt when it comes to talking about anything. I don't want to say end of world type, but they're bankrupt when it comes to wanting to talk about what the Bible has to say about the incredible last days that we are in. If you were to exhort a pastor right now, in light of the fact that here we've got an Islamic country excited about the end times, we've got America bored with the fact that we're in the end times, how would you exhort a pastor right now?
Well, this is the prime season to teach a congregation about what the Bible says about the end of days. Clearly, the world is paying attention to this issue. And I think if a pastor is giving the solid biblical evidences for the events that lead up to the very end of time, I believe that the congregation would be absolutely enthralled to understand the times that we live in. Let's face it, those who have been connected with Iran literally for decades have talked virtually nonstop about end times. Isn't that interesting? Islamic countries are obsessed with end times and bringing about end times. Shia Islam believes that the end times and the hidden Imam, the 12th Imam, comes about through an apocalypse. In other words, something that we would think of as nuclear destruction. They believe nuclear destruction brings about their culmination. I think it's vital. I don't understand why any pulpit right now wouldn't also observe the times that we live in and explain it from a biblical perspective. We needn't have to be walking in fear with our heads down in despair. What a biblical pastor can do is speak to people about how Jesus said the fig leaves are changing on the trees. The season is approaching. And I believe that too many believers in the United States right now haven't yet heard the teaching on what is coming.
Do you understand what she's getting at there? She's basically saying, Muslims are so much more extreme than Christians. They believe in stuff like end times, specifically in Shia Islam. Isn't that great? Shouldn't we do the same thing in Christianity? Why don't more people in Christianity believe in end times? We really need pastors to start talking about that. Man, how scary is that? Isn't that unreal? You know what this reminds me of? I don't know how many of you guys saw the documentary Jesus Camp, but if you haven't seen it, go watch it and prepare to have your mind blown. Because basically what it's about is fundamentalist evangelical Christian camp where kids go and they get indoctrinated. It's just pure propaganda. At the time, they prayed to a cardboard cutout of George W. Bush. They speak about how, Jesus, whatever you want me to do, I will do for you. I will be a warrior for Christ. I'm ready for the holy war. Things like that. And what Michele Bachmann is doing here is she's echoing that sentiment. The sentiment of, they're militaristic and they're extreme and they believe in prophecy. Why don't we? We should be militaristic. We should be extreme. We should believe in prophecy. We got to be prepared for this stuff, guys. So instead of looking at fundamentalism and going, let's be more open-minded, more tolerant, more liberal, and care about reality, she goes, no! I want to be the opposite side of the same coin of hatred and bigotry and intolerance and stupidity. That's what I want to be. Which is why I've said time and time again that if you listen to what they tell you, fundamentalist Christians and fundamentalist Muslims, it's hilarious that they have this thing where they're like, we're against them, they're against us. Because they actually agree. They agree on so many things. Just obviously you take out the word Bible, put in the word Quran, you take out the word Christian, you put in the word Muslim, change a few rules here and there, and boom, you're done. They're exactly the fucking same. The people who really are opposed to everything the fundamentalists stand for are the liberals, which is, again, why it's funny when Christians try to lump in liberals and fundamentalist Muslims. We could not disagree with anybody more. And then understand, guys, so for those of you who say, whatever, it's theoretical, it's Michele Bachmann, she's a kook, it's got no bearing on policy whatsoever. No. Understand there are plenty of Republican congressmen at the state level and at the federal level, or Republican politicians, I should say, who buy into this stuff. And it's not like there are no real-world consequences. So, for example, why do you think it is that the Christian right is always 100% of the time on the page with the right wing in Israel? Because they tell you, according to biblical prophecy, John Hagee was just talking about this the other day, according to biblical prophecy, Jesus comes back there, so they want to get rid of the Palestinians, the entire area needs to be Israel, and then that allows Jesus to come back, do another genocide of the Jews, some of them that convert he lets live, how kind of him, and then, they fly bodily back to heaven, and it's the apocalypse, and all the Christians are all saved. So they want to usher in end times, and that leads them to do things like reject the Iran deal. Because that would actually lead to peace with Iran. And, of course, Netanyahu is against that. And they're always with Netanyahu. So, what? He's against it? I'm against it too. And they're actively trying to tank a peace deal. They're actively trying to bring about a situation on this earth that will bring us closer to war. If not just flat out calling for war like people like Louis Gohmert and others. So this is dangerous, this has real-world consequences, and the answer to fundamentalism and extremism in certain areas of the Muslim world is not to copy the same shit like Michele Bachmann wants us to do. It's for us to be liberal and open-minded and intelligent and to try to bring about peace on this earth, not to try to bring about the next world by killing us all, when, by the way, the next world likely doesn't exist.